There's a little bit of a perfectionist mindset in all of us that gets in the way of actually just trying something and realizing that it's okay to fail and it's okay to try to be bold and try to be different, because that can actually lead to the most transformation.
Welcome to Rise and Stride, where we empower you to take your next step in an ever-changing business landscape. Here's your host, Denise LeDuc-Fremming, President and CEO of the California Society of CPAs.
Hello and welcome to Rise and Stride, the podcast where fresh perspectives meet today's biggest issues in accounting and business. Each month, we bring you conversations with diverse voices, exploring insights and ideas to help you stay ahead in this ever-changing world. Today, we are mixing things up in this episode as we have two special guests with us. Jim Wallace, CEO of BPM, and Chris Vanover, founder and president of CPAClub. Both firms recently earned the Cal CPA Firm of the Year Award in the mid to large size firm and the small firm categories. Both firms have been honored for recognition of their vision, their values, and leadership that they bring to the profession. BPM is one of the nation's top 35 firms in public accounting and advisory services, and CPAClub is working to transform the accounting profession through innovation and expert-driven solutions. So Jim and Chris, I am so excited that you're here with me, and I really look forward to hearing your perspectives and what has really led to the success that each of you have today, and I'm sure in the future will continue to have. So thank you for being with us.
Very glad to be here.
It's great to be here, Denise.
So maybe we can just kick off with both of your firms are really focused on individuals and right talent and people first. So Jim, BPM is because people matter. Love that. And CPAClub is focused on a 5-star experience. And, we know that the customer perspective and customer experience is really the differentiator today, and probably with AI will be even more of a differentiator in the future. So maybe you can both share with us kind of your thoughts on what that entails and how you're looking at the future and what you're focused on. I'll let you fight over who goes first.
Chris can go first.
There you go.
All right, Jim. Yeah, I think, for us, Denise, and again, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. But for us, we actually have what we call our CPAClub star. And what always points north is the north part of that star. And our North Star is actually delivering a 5-star experience, not only for our people, the employees of CPAClub, but also for our pass holders. And so everything is grounded in that for us. And there are ways where we actually can measure success against both of those. And when they don't necessarily achieve those marks, it encourages dialogue, it encourages discussion. And because of those simple points that we focus on, it becomes very easy for us to ultimately pivot and react when things are going awry, which is honestly rare within our community here at CPAClub, but ultimately it gives us that sense of direction and always allows us to continue just pointing north and making sure that we're upholding our end of the bargain to support both our pass holders and our people at CPAClub.
That's great. Do you ever, just quick question, Jim, do you ever have maybe an opportunity where someone has not delivered 5-star experience and you have to go back and look at your processes? Just wondering how intuitive that is within the system that you have or the process.
Yeah, it's very obvious. I'll talk about it from a people standpoint. All of our people basically generate a self-reflection each month, and they actually rate themselves against whether they actually delivered a 5-star experience for our pass holders. And similarly, did they receive a 5-star employee experience from CPAClub? And so we've had select instances where an employee, for whatever reason, may ultimately not be able to deliver a 5-star experience in a given month. And if they're being honest and true and transparent to themselves and the club, they will actually rate themselves below that 5-star and say no to that particular question. And then obviously, again, it forces a dialogue around, well, what drove that? What happened? And how do we actually make sure that doesn't become a repeating issue and is really just an anomaly within the overall scope of what we're trying to achieve? So it does happen. It's rare on occasion, but obviously, again, it's the dialogue and the feedback that we need to ultimately help drive change and ultimately make sure people are getting back to that 5-star experience on both sides.
It's interesting with self-reflection piece. So Jim, because people matter.
Well, one of the things we do is like to learn from others. So I got to tell you, I'm so excited to hear Chris talk about what he's doing because how often do we say, if I could start a fresh firm with a fresh piece of paper, what would I do? Right. And I think that's what we're going to get to hear some of today is how cool that is. For us, it's kind of the other end of the spectrum because People Matter has been our brand promise for 40 years. And so it is built in everything we do. It's a pillar of our strategic plans. It's tied into every specific action item for a given year in terms of executing our strategy. It's how we treat our own people, or we call colleagues. That's an example right there. We let them vote on what they wanted to be called, and they voted for colleagues, which worked out great because then we have the three C's: the colleagues, the clients, and the communities. So I was glad they picked colleagues because that made it easy. Yeah, it made it easy. And so, yeah, we talk about how because People Matter impacts our clients, our colleagues, and our communities in everything we do. And it's always been that way. So when the firm started, that was the brand promise, and it's never changed. What we have changed a little bit is we put in our mission probably 10 years ago to help others be successful in work and life. And so again, we start every meeting with a review of our mission and our vision. So we talk about what it means to help others be successful. We talk about looking to your right and looking to your left instead of the old version where you look to your right and left and think one of them's not going to be here, right? We talk about looking to your right and looking to your left and saying to yourself, how am I going to help them? Because when they're successful, they'll pull me along with them. And again, that could be in a community situation, a client situation, or just with colleagues. So we just make that a real priority. Some other, more recent emphases have been on belonging and psychological safety, so we can keep people happy and communicating and sharing their great ideas with us. But yeah, it's when somebody comes in, they start on in the interview process, or if they've researched us before, they already know before the interview that we're the Because People Matter firm.
I like your new look to the left, look to the right, how you can help each other instead of what we heard, probably all three of us, what we heard in school was that one of you will be gone in a month or two, which was not like weeding out people is not how you get the profession to thrive. It's you got to weed them in, right?
That's right. Well, so I won't name names, but I started at a big eight, so that gives you a clue to my age. But I started at a big eight, and yeah, that was when we called it e-school. Like, what kind of name was that? But you went to e-school your first year, and yeah, we did that in a room of 3,000 people, and I'll never forget that. I'm thinking like, that's not a firm. That's not how if I ever get a chance to run a firm, that's not how we're going to do that.
Yeah, it's deflating. Both of you've talked about the team perspective, right? Colleagues, team, staff, but the importance of the team. And that really drives the customer experience or client experience. Just tell me a little bit more about that and how you continue to have that focus in a world that's moving so fast and um, compliance driven. And we can talk because I do think that's at the heart of being successful is having both those pieces.
So we talk a lot about serving clients with a team and measure statistics like how many partners are involved in a client so that we know a client's getting a well-rounded experience, doing net promoter scores and client satisfaction surveys. But again, that we want each colleague to feel like they're providing service through a team experience because that's what makes the clients happy is when they're getting lots of touch points, lots of proactive advice. So we talk about, making sure that there's lots of people involved because when 5 or 6 people are dealing with client, it's a lot less burden on yourself to be proactive and share because you've got everybody to share with. So that's a little bit about our team process.
And for us at the club, and Jim, you're gonna laugh at this, but we call our folks crew, and that fits with basically we sell access passes that we call captains, chiefs, and crew passes, and so our team collectively is a crew, and we're very big on just basically. I know it's a little bit of a nautical reference, but we row together, right, and we also grow together as a team, and so for us, we're in a different spot than BPM. Obviously, BPM being a top 35 firm, you have a ton of resources. At CPAClub, we're very small, very intimate. And every one of our crew members is so mission critical to what we do every single day. And they understand that, right? So when we look to our left or we look to our right, we can't afford to have any of those folks leave us at any point in time, right? And so they understand their value and they understand exactly what they're here to do. And it's not even just ultimately, supporting our pass holders, but it's also supporting the club. And so all of our people actually work collaboratively together each quarter, what we call the CPAClub challenge. And that CPAClub challenge is something that ultimately drives our top line or it drives our bottom line. And so it could be something as simple as evaluating our technology stack, or it could be how do we actually enhance the pass holder experience based on what we're doing today and making it better. They're going to come up with the challenge and they're going to work collaboratively with other folks on our crew to ultimately make sure they're successful with that challenge. And that ultimately allows the club to keep growing and furthering our efforts in terms of impacting the profession. So for us, it's so critical that even when we think about, how do we support our pass holders, what's equally important there is the fact that CPAClub is actually the biggest subscriber to our employees' talent. And so we need them to ultimately execute things for the benefit of the club as well.
I mean, you both have themes and definite cultures that are built in. And I'm assuming when people interview or when they think about joining, they understand that. So they're buying in, right, to how you work and how you show up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, people see, today people have researched you before they ever get to you. So they have some idea that they're going to like the situation or not, right? Before you even have that first meeting.
I think in general, it's much more open than when I started working. As far as you can have more open conversations, you understand there may be a fit, there may not be a fit, and there's just more opportunity to move and have those conversations than there ever were before.
We pushed the flexibility aspect, which would start with a conversation about what individual colleagues want, what they're looking for. So the number one reason people pick BPM or stay at BPM, it is because of our flexibility. And so we often talk about wanting to be known as the most flexible service provider, in the country, and when it comes to how we interact with our team members. So coming to an interview or even being in your career and having a open, honest conversation, I'd like summers off. I want to travel. I would like to take a 3-month sabbatical and come back. I'm having a child and I want twice the, normal leave, whatever. Those conversations are expected because that's what makes us flexible. It's our opportunity to prove that we're flexible and supportive. So we look forward to it.
Chris, you probably have some of those similar conversations too, being a different kind of model that's out there, I would assume.
Yeah. And so for us, when we look to attract individuals, and all of our people are typically coming out of the big four with anywhere from 5 to 12 years of experience. And they probably have gotten to a point in their career where they're a bit frustrated by that experience that they've had within the big four environment sometimes. And so they're looking for something different. And so one of the things we always see is, yes, we want a top performer coming out of the big four. We want that person to have the technical skills, but more importantly, as you mentioned, Denise, it's got to be a cultural fit with the club. And so they have to understand that they're entering into a very, entrepreneurial type firm that ultimately is trying to drive growth and try to drive change in this profession. They've got to want to be a change agent to ultimately make a difference out there and help improve our profession as a whole. And that may not be for everybody, right? And they have to understand that, we're not the size of a PwC or a Deloitte that's just going to have infinite amounts of resources to help support them. And they understand they're on the ground of something special here. And so that ultimately drives a lot of people into our culture and into the club. But we also try to, be different in the sense that we want to commit to not only paying top of market compensation from when you walk through the door, but on top of that, giving them very reasonable workloads throughout the year. And part of that is because of our subscription access model. And because of that, they're able to enjoy, for the most part, 90% of the weeks of the year, a 4-day work week, right? And so all those things come together and they go, look, things can be done differently. And that's also very attractive to them when they're evaluating potential firms to engage with and ultimately become a part of.
And I think I read so many books on scarcity and constraints and actually how that creates innovation, right? Because you think differently about how you can do things, right? So yeah, jumping to innovation, because I know you both are innovative, different thinkers, you know, knowing that we're, a world of change and experimenting and piloting is so important. How do you encourage your teams to lean into that? And especially, each of us is maybe a little less risk averse at times um, than, we need to be. Go anywhere you
Jim, you
want
want to
with that,
go?
because that's
Sh-
we can have a great conversation on that.
Well, so yeah, one of the things we did is we built right in our strategic plan, fail fast to succeed sooner. That's kind of our motto. We talk about it all the time, which is, you're right, Denise, it's totally different than, when I started 40 years ago, you weren't allowed to make any mistakes, right? So yeah, so fail fast to succeed sooner. So we encourage people to test. We set up IT sandboxes so people can buy software and on their own, and play with it and see what it's like, or they can write their own code in AI and see what works and doesn't work. We have a chief transformation officer. It's more common now, but when we started it 5 years ago, I think we might have been the first firm in the country to have a chief transformation officer. And I think what we're trying to do, and I'm be surprised if Chris has a different answer than this, is we're not trying to make incremental changes. We're trying to change the profession, like what we do and how we do it to the benefit of everybody, but certainly to the benefit of the colleagues. So the 4-day work week, I share with our partners all the time that we're going to be there. So you've figured out a way to do it voluntarily, but it's going to be mandated. I mean, it already is in Europe in a lot of places, and it's going to follow here. So we need to just start getting our head around that. So we need to be innovative now. How are we going to get to that point? And so, yeah, we're constantly trying to push the envelope, but not for little things, but to dramatically change the way we do work and dramatically change the way our colleagues feel about their jobs.
Same answer, Jim. Just like you suspected. Maybe a little bit of a slight twist on that is similarly, we have an innovation captain, and ultimately every single month we're reporting in terms of what have we done to actually innovate over the past month. And again, we track those things here at CPAClub because we know what we do today won't be what we do tomorrow, right? And so we have to stay 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years ahead of the curve, and just start to understand what is the pace of change looking like and how do we react to it. The beauty of us not being an aircraft carrier is that we are actually pretty small and nimble and we can adjust very quickly. And so my team at times probably gets frustrated with me because I'm constantly throwing ideas out there and saying, okay, let's try this and see what happens. And sometimes, trying to, I guess, make something perfect gets in the way of something that's good. And so my mantra is ultimately similar to Jim's point here is, fail fast and throw something out there, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, pull it back. If it does, great, continue to figure out how to plus that offering so we can continue to innovate and improve upon that. So same concept as Jim has, but it becomes, again, just part of that culture at CPAClub where it becomes an expectation is that you're not necessarily doing things the way they were done yesterday. You're constantly looking for ways to do it better and do it faster and more efficiently.
And Chris is right. The change management is the hardest part. 80 partners, 1,200 people. We don't turn on a dime. Like, even if everybody thinks it's a good idea, it still takes time to get a new process in place or train up people, and that can be frustrating. But it's just got to be more of a motivator, right? So we just have to work that much harder because we gotta turn 1,200 people on the ship, not just. Yep.
And I think, Denise, maybe to add to that a little bit, we have, I'll call it an inherent motivator because of a subscription model. We always have, in essence, a fixed fee investment that every firm or company that's engaging with us knows what they're paying on a monthly or annual basis. So our job is to constantly deliver more and more solutions to them where they can then say, okay, was the value of my investment commensurate with what actually I received in terms of solutions from CPAClub? So we know from a people perspective, time is a constraint, but throw the time out the window, throw the hours out the window. Our job is just to deliver more and more value. And so one of the ways we can encourage that is, hey, if you're not under a billable hour model, you're ultimately looking to AI and automation to help do things more efficiently and effectively. And that inherently creates that innate pressure on our people to figure out better ways to do things. I don't know if we have that same concept under a billable hour model today.
If you haven't written your book yet, I hope you do soon, right? Because that's what we got to do. We all have to get away from the billable hour, and I think some firms have made progress, some firms are still stuck, but it is so hard to move. And then the more we innovate, the less hours there are, and then it's just a spiral of lost revenue, which then causes people to say, "Well, I don't want to innovate. We have lower revenue now," and right, it's just for an existing firm, I'm so jealous that you have a chance to start fresh with that model instead of having to change it. So that is the pain point. We all have to move away from the billable hour and do on what value can I produce?
And it's incredibly liberating, right? When you're in an environment like that where you're not actually punching a card or ultimately managing the clock. End of the day, our people know what they need to do to, again, go back to that 5-star experience for them and the pass holders. If they can answer yes to both of those, then their week is done at that point, and they can go home and enjoy lives.
I think of this, I don't know if it was a book or podcast I was listening to, but talking about the AI, and we can go there next, but the AI, mean, if you think of billable hours and you can do something now in half the time, does it mean that has less value? Not necessarily. It could have double the value because you have insights you don't have. But if you're charging on the billable hour, it's going to be less. And so that is, I think, Jim, to your point, is the conundrum. How got to get away from that because AI is going to change that that model significantly.
And it is going to change the model, but it's not different than what we've done in our whole, so I'm maybe the only one on the call old enough to remember the first compact computer when it came out, and it dramatically reduced hours on a job. I remember I was working on the Dow Chemical Company, and we dramatically reduced hours on that job, which we immediately gave as a discount to the client. And then the partner came back to us and said, so we just made less on this gig, so now you got to go out and sell more, right? And so now you got to work on 3 jobs to get the same number of hours that you did on one, right? And yeah, we've as a profession, we have to recognize that it's value we're bringing, not time.
Yeah, it's really the value of the people that you've assembled, right? Every one of those people is making a certain compensation, salary bonuses and all that sort of stuff. And that's at the end of the day what we use to figure out exactly where we should sell our subscription pricing at, right? And ultimately there's a margin baked into that. And from there, it's just a matter of, okay, can those people collectively, individually or collectively, can they deliver enough solutions in a given period, a month or an annual subscription to say, hey, pass holder believes that the value was there, right? They're going to tell you at the end of the day. So it's interesting that, you ultimately, I guess, pass along those savings to the client in that case. And that, creates a recipe. It spirals out of control very quickly.
Spirals out of control quickly. Yes.
Yeah. It's deflating too, to your point, Jim, because you're like, okay, now I did something great, but now I have to go and double up on, sales and going out and finding
Well,
more.
we were excited because we were one of the first groups in the country to get a big luggable compact computer, right? And so we thought we were really cool until we made less money, right? then it wasn't cool anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. So as we're talking about technology, and we know AI, it's in front of us and been in front of us for quite some time. How do you prepare your firms? I mean, you both innovate, but how do you prepare individuals to lean in and then to understand the use cases and to have the white space? That's another question I have. To have the white space to be able to just lean into it.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to a lot of things we've mentioned thus far. For us, it's encouraging the experimentation because they know that, and hopefully they understand, that if they go out and experiment with this, it may or may not make their lives better, but they have to try, right? And so there comes that point where, you go through a process of evaluating a particular AI technology or tool and say, okay, I'm going to invest the time because I do think it's going to pay dividends. But there's also those points where you invest that time and ultimately it may not necessarily do what you thought it was going to do, right? And so you have to be okay. Again, it's the concept of being okay with failing, and better to try something than not to try at all, because you just never know when that win can come. And those wins don't necessarily come automatically sometimes. Sometimes they take a little bit more investment and resources and intensive time studying things, but sometimes the payoff is pretty big. And we've seen that. And ultimately, one of the solutions we deliver for CPA firms these days is around the new quality management implementation. And we figured out a way to actually scale that from a very manual effort into a very automated and AI-driven way of doing it, right? And it's because our people experimented with it. We're now seeing the rewards of that coming to fruition. So I think it's just a matter of, again, culturally just letting people know that this is a safe space to try things. I mean, that could be anything. It could be AI, automation, it could be learning other crafts and tools. Whatever it is just empowering your people to allow them to try to create and innovate on their own.
And so similar, we encouraged people to just try things. I used to share, the way I started on AI was kind of like as a party game. When you had people over, you'd get out Chat GPT and write a poem in the voice of Robert Frost, or right, just to get used to it. And we would share those stories around the firm, just whatever you need to do. And then we tried to be quick in, use of Copilot. There's still firms out there who haven't licensed Copilot in their whole firm yet. Like, it's crazy talk, right? And that kind of thing, to make sure that people have access and feel good about using it. But you said kind of a key word for me, Denise, as you talked about the use cases. So one of the things I think as a profession at BPM, but certainly as a profession, what we need to do is the use cases are the opportunities to test things and to get low hanging fruit, but we really need technology efficiency strategies that are much bigger than use cases. And I think right now a lot of firms are focused on the next use case. So I can automate this, or I can automate that, right? And I had a great analogy, which I can't take credit for, was, if we could go back in time and look at electrification again, right? So when we discovered electricity, it was all about getting electricity to a light bulb, right? But if you could go back and do it over again, you'd electrify your whole house, or you'd electrify your whole town, right? You wouldn't start with a use case. Let's get it to the light bulb. Well, so we have that learning. So let's take that now and say, how do I AI-fy my firm? How do we integrate AI in our profession? And certainly use cases are a way that you learn about it and you try it and you get some quick results, but that's not what's going to make us winners, right? What's going to make us winners is how do we learn from the past and stop and not just focus on use cases, but focus on how do I implement this broadly across our profession, my firm, a client, but bigger than a use case.
Yeah, and Denise, one of the things I'll maybe follow on is I mentioned earlier, like our CPAClub star, it guides us. And one of the points on that star is with respect to our pass holders. One of those points is with respect to our people. I already talked about the experience being the North Star. One of it's on performance, and one of them actually is on innovation. So again, going back to those self-reflections that our people do every single month, one of the things they're self-reflecting on is what have they done around innovation every single month for us. And so it's very eye-opening to read these periodically and say, hey, this person actually explored AI agents to help improve their workflow, right? So again, it's that cultural connection back to there's an expectation that we're all doing our part to help innovate from a firm-wide perspective and also just to help transform the profession.
Yeah, so you're AIifying your whole firm, right? That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. We did office hours to try, to your point, Jim, the technology piece. Like, is it AI? Is it a process? Like, what do you need to do to be more efficient in how you work? And then how can we share those so to make sure
Yep.
we
So
understand?
everybody's involved. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
important.
I think the other thing too is, think about our learning paths within our respective firms. I don't know exactly how BPM is, or I know I can speak to CPAClub, but even other firms that we see, a lot of it's very focused on the traditional, hey, let's do an audit level 1 or a tax level 1, a tax level 2, all that sort of stuff, all the way up the ranks, right? How often now is just more of the focus needs to maybe spill over to the technology side of the equation and say, hey, how many courses has someone taken on AI or automation or Copilot or ChatGPT? To me, that's maybe more valuable these days, and maybe some of the technical skills that people are trying to continue to learn just from a traditional pathway perspective.
It's good from the learning pathways. I like that. Professional development. Yeah. So you both talked about, changing the profession and having that larger goal, right? And vision and focus. So where do you see CPA firms, technology, whatever we call ourselves in the future, where do you see it all going? Crystal ball.
I believe the value we deliver will always be built around trust, integrity, and so on. I think that is our foundational element. So, but I believe we're just going to have to do it in different uh, some different services and so on. And when we talk about changing the profession, things like the billable hour, but the experience that people have when we're focused so narrowly on, for example, on history versus looking forward, or on people's charge hours versus the value that they're bringing, or how much overtime they've worked versus how much have we allowed them to enjoy their lives outside of work. So those are all the kind of changes that I think we need to make. But as a profession, I still think that our pledge, our value is that we are the most trusted advisors. People believe in the CPA model. They believe that they can come to us with questions and ask for our help, and that we will be honest and ethical and professional. And so we had to keep building from that foundation. But I think it was it Amazon? It's probably Amazon who said, we talked about the changes, and he said, well, I can't imagine a time when our people aren't going to want the best products at the lowest price delivered to their door the quickest. So he wasn't overly worried about changes. So I can't believe there's going to be a time where people aren't going to still want values that brings them success in life delivered at a fair price by people who are honest and have full of integrity.
I love the question, and I think about this a lot. I think there's a couple ways I could envision this playing out. I think first and foremost, it goes back to what Jim was talking about, the experience. For the most part, professional services these days, it's not a great experience to be a consumer of those services. Okay. And I'm going to go back to even getting an email the other day from our outside counsel, which was a matter of minutes, but ultimately created a billable hour invoice. And I thought, okay, this stinks. And I've even had those situations where we've had our own attorneys try to draft up subscription agreements, and then we're getting billed by the hour, and it just creates friction. It creates a bad experience. Or even working with third-party agencies on website development, they're billing by the hour. Ultimately, you get an invoice. You say, hey, can you do this for me? They go back to a very long-winded process to get you to the new scope of the agreement, and then they bill you for that, right? So just to make the experience more seamless, more consumer friendly, I think is a big push for us here at CPAClub, and I think we're already doing that. I would love to see more firms head down that road. I guess I also worry a little bit about the consolidation happening right now in the profession, which is all over, whether it's private equity or even the news the other day where 5 firms joined to create a mega firm that's now in the top 50, right? I just I know we're at the different end of the spectrum here between top 35 firms and we have very small firms. I think what I'd love to be able to see is I feel like firms continue to get measured by how much revenue they generate and usually by how many people they have. I think what's ultimately happening here is you're seeing a mechanism where a solopreneur gig economy can now thrive in a world of very big fish. And so I think it actually creates opportunities with AI and automation where it's no longer how many people you have, but it's hopefully going to be a race to maybe how many solopreneurs out there can work independently and have a fantastic life because of it, but ultimately spin up their own shop and do their own thing on their own terms with the support of perhaps a larger backing behind them. Okay. So that's where I kind of see maybe there's 2 different pathways. One is a race to the top in terms of consolidation, but then I also see this opportunity for solopreneurs to thrive in the market because of the tools and technologies out there. And I think it can go both ways. Doesn't mean they can't be, they don't necessarily need to be mutually exclusive by any means.
I think about that all the time with the consolidation and the different models now. Are people going to bounce out of there and they're going to start their own? And we're going to see, because there's so much opportunity to, if you have a phone, if you have AI, you can start something, right? And more things with AI are encouraging creators and builders and innovators. And so I wonder if there's more opportunity for some of that.
Yeah. And you think about like a company like DoorDash, right? How long have they been around now? Pretty much everybody has that app on their phone. There's no reason in my mind that the CPA world can't ultimately have its own version of DoorDash, right? Where services are delivered by, in essence, independent contractors that are backed by a technology or a system that helps them do this stuff with confidence and assurance, right? And so in the process, giving a better experience to the people that are actually consuming the product, hopefully.
It's a lot to think about here. So our listeners can take some notes and have other conversations from this.
Yeah, but I think just real quick, lastly, I want to, and Jim, you were mentioning this too. It's so important that I don't want people to necessarily think of work as their primary focus in life, right? To me, it still should be on life first and then work comes second. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I took heart to was one of our employees, actually, she was a Cal CPA Women to Watch nominee. She posted up, she's been with for about a year, fantastic employee. And I want to read this real quick because she posted it on LinkedIn, just kind of reflecting on the past year she's had with the club. And she mentioned, about finding a company that truly lives its values, home of the 4-day work week, gave me back my Fridays. While other firms may pride themselves on long hours, this model has allowed me to be fully present for my son as he's hit so many firsts and milestones during a pivotal year of his life. And she went on to say, this balance has been a blessing. I not only push myself professionally, but also have the time and energy to focus on my personal life too. Over the past year, I've lost 15 pounds, took some recreational swim lessons, joined a bowling league, served on the associate board, and took 3 international vacations. Like, to me, if that doesn't spell life, I don't know what does. And I think that's part of our job as leaders of our firm, is to make sure people are actually getting more life than work these days.
And those kind of communications are so rewarding, right? Because that's what keeps you going. So I don't have it in front of me, but one of my favorite of all times was when I got an email from one of our colleagues thanking me because they got to be home to see their baby take their first steps. And I have 4 children, and I made me cry because I never saw any of my 4 kids take their first steps, right? And I would come home from work, and my wife would say, "Oh, look, Lily can walk today," and yeah, and it's so rewarding, and that's part of why our focus on flexibility, to have those kind of rewarding conversations or emails that you get, and yeah, super
Yeah.
cool.
And I mean, Jim, I'm going to steal your tagline. It's because people do matter, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's the truth behind it.
super cool. That's what keeps us motivated every day.
So maybe, we're getting close to the time, but I have a couple more questions. The one I have is, you're both innovative, people first. What would you say to a firm's like, I want to be there, but I don't know the first step or two I need to take? Help them to get at least to phase one.
I think
The
it's your
easy
turn.
answer for me would be start over,
Yeah.
scrap it, and start something new. Because it's tough to obviously pivot when you may be the Titanic, right? But the reality is some of these firms are the Titanic, and we all know what happened to the Titanic, right? And so I think that's slowly happening as these firms are starting to sink because people are realizing there are better ways to do things in terms of how they approach work and life and the balance between those two. I would say listen to your people, right? And understand that it's not just the partners that matter, but it's actually everyone down from the intern all the way up. They all have a voice, and they all should have a voice, whether it's voting or not. Those are the people that drive your vessel at the end of the day. And so you need to make sure you're in tune with what they're asking for and what they're seeing out there. The quicker you can react to that and ultimately put some changes in place, it's hopefully going to avert a disaster for those firms that are really on the cusp of perhaps, sinking because they're, tied too much to tradition at this point.
So I just add to all those accurate things and good things to say. My dad used to always say that everybody's a do-it-yourselfer. The only difference is that some people start, right? So he would say, once you take the motor apart, you got to figure out how to put it back together, right? So you just got to start. You got to take out the first screw and then get going on it. And so that'd be my advice. You got to just start. You can't be afraid. So I'm going to try something different. We automated engagement letters 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Oh my God, did we blow it? Right? We had no idea the data was bad. I mean, it was a disaster, but we learned. And so the next year, now they crank them out. It's great. But you got to start. You have to do the first one. You had to automate that first engagement letter and see all the problems that when you don't have the right addresses and you've got the emails and they don't match up, and you just got to start.
And I mean, Jim, what you're talking about there, right? That's that concept you brought up earlier. It's like fail fast, right? And I think a lot of us in our profession, we have a certain type of personality for the most part. And there's a little bit of a perfectionist mindset in all of us that gets in the way of actually just trying something and realizing that it's okay to fail and it's okay to try to be bold and try to be different, because that can actually lead to the most transformation. But to Jim's point, you got to do something.
It reminds me of the Savannah Bananas. We just had the gentleman and one piece is, do the unsustainable till it's sustainable. And I think about that all the time as we're equally trying to disrupt the association model. I've been in associations quite some time. This model doesn't work anymore. So how do you change it? And I'm listening to both of you for advice too. It's painful. It's painful, but you need to start.
A lot of similarities, right, in the association model and what we're seeing in the profession as well. The revenue streams are changing. Consolidation messes everything up, right? And a lot of similarities.
So I'm looking to you two for guidance. So this is
I'd say,
really
and
helpful.
Denise, I think you've heard me say this before, but a lot of the inspiration I get is from very personal consumer-driven experiences in life, whether it's going to Disneyland, whether it's shopping through Amazon or Apple. Don't just look internally within our profession, but also look at who's doing things outside of our profession. How can we perhaps bring some of that fuel into our own profession, our own ecosystem?
I often say, how are we the prime? Prime, prime, prime. That's the question, right? So it's getting close on time, and I appreciate both of you so much. I do have two last questions. One of them is on how do you spot and develop future leaders? So what are the couple things you both look for?
Wow. That's a lot of that is vague terminology, maybe. We talk about spark and common sense and caring. Um, so, uh, People who buy into because people matter, people who've helped other people around them be successful, then they stand out because they're hugely successful. That's a big player, but innovators, people open-minded, people not afraid to fail, people afraid to say what's on their mind and take the risk. Um, it's such a broad, like, I don't know that there's a one thing kind of answer, and a lot of the answers are kind of vague cliches. So.
Yeah, I'll maybe echo the cliche here and say I think a true leader is born. Innately, it's within them, but ultimately, they only become that leader through the experience of failure. So I actually will gravitate towards people who have actually failed in doing something, and how they responded to that failure usually tells me whether they can lead or not.
So one piece of advice that you would give a young CPA who dreams of leading and being CEO of a firm one day, their own, another firm.
I'm going to go back to my go-to, which was the quote I left at the summit, where it was a lyric from Garth Brooks: "Choose to chance the rapids and dare to dance the tide." Those are words that always have rung true for me. It's what I wrote as a dedication page on my senior thesis at Claremont McKenna, and it's still words I hear and live by every single day. So I want people to embrace that and ultimately know that we need more people like that to ultimately propel change in this profession.
And I'll go back to the same thing from the stage as well, is if you help others be successful in work and life, then they will help you be successful. My dad was a CEO. He used to say, you don't have to be the smartest or the best, but if you surround yourself with great people and let them do their job, they'll drag you along. And I remembered my failure story. The reason I got the job at BPM is because so many of the challenges that we needed to do, things we needed to take care of at BPM, I had failed at. Like, I had done that before and not done it right, and learned from that and was able to do it right. So that was a big part of my success. That's brought success to BPM, was past failures.
This is a drop the mic moment because you both gave some really great advice. So I hope our listeners were taking notes and really taking to heart some of the advice, because you're both clearly very successful and very dedicated and passionate leaders. And we're very lucky to have you within the profession and, of course, connected to Cal CPA. So I appreciate everything you do for the profession as we try to lead forward and change, and what you do, honestly, for others that you lead, others who you lead. So thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Rise and Stride is produced by the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. To learn more, visit calcpa.org.